Whose side are they really on appears to be not just a very fair question, but a very relevant question based upon two things that I'll talk to you about in this video. And the voice has got worse, the cold has got worse, so please do bear with me. I will still fight through it. So there are two stories here. Firstly, one of you guys, my viewers, sent me an article here whereby ministers are reportedly refusing to share information with delivery companies following the story that illegal migrants were renting, for want of a better word, accounts with delivery companies and then making £1,000 a week, obviously without paying tax because they're not supposed to be working in the first place. But ministers are reportedly refusing to share the location of asylum hotels with the delivery companies so that they can then go and investigate and find out what's really going on and obviously shut that down. This is MSN.com. Ministers refuse to share the locations. They cite safety concerns. Now, I don't really see why there'd be a safety concern sharing the information with a select few high-ranking officials within those companies so they can make their own investigations. I don't really see why that is a safety concern, to be quite honest. It's not like they're publishing it online, and it's not like news companies aren't going out and finding where these hotels are in the first place. So I don't really buy that. I see in principle there's an argument about safety, but it's not something that I really agree with. Nonetheless, they're apparently refusing to share this information with those delivery companies, which is hindering their progress in going to find out. Now, Deliveroo is one of the companies that say they are leading the sector by introducing security measures to prevent the illegal working on the platform. And they attended a round table with the Home Office and other delivery firms to engage on plans to combat this practice and obviously try to stamp out this illegal practice of working. Firms are understood to be making sweeping changes in the way that they operate, including strengthening identity checks, increasing facial verification checks, and so on. You'll all be familiar, I think, by now with most banking apps where you are verified with your face and so on. So that really shouldn't be that difficult. And if they can't be verified by their face, frankly, they shouldn't be working on the platform. Let's be honest about it. That's quite a simple change to make. Yvette Cooper said, "Illegal working undermines honest business and undercuts local wages. The British public will not stand for it, and neither will this government." Well, she's absolutely right in that the British public are not going to stand for such things, but in blocking the information from the companies that are trying to stamp it out, I think is counterproductive to actually stamping it out. And so if the government's not going to stand for it, I would personally suggest that they do cooperate with these companies, and that would be one way of doing it. But as I said, whose side are they really on? Because when we come back to other stories such as free speech and people being imprisoned for social media tweets, you might recall Rupert Lowe posted a petition which then very quickly garnered support. It's this post here. Rupert Lowe posts, "People should not be imprisoned for stupid social media posts. This petition's pushing the government to urgently review the penalties." Now, the key here is it's pushing to review the penalties. That'll be important in a moment. He says, "Lucy Connolly and others should not be in prison. This petition has the support of her family. Please sign and share." And so I personally signed this petition, as did many, many others. And it says as follows: "Review possible penalties for social media posts, including the use of prison. We call on the government to urgently review the possible penalties for non-violent offences arising from social media posts, including the use of prison." Because, as you'll have heard from other stories that I've told you about, people are being given suspended sentences, i.e. not actually going to prison for violent offences and even sex offences, whereby they make a non-violent post, albeit in some cases inciting violence, which is still wrong, but not actually physically turned up or hit anybody, are going to prison for several years, including Lucy Connolly. Rupert Lowe in the post, the petition goes on to say, "This is a serious public concern about proportionality of sentencing in cases involving opinion-based online speech. We believe imprisoning individuals for posts on social media sets a dangerous precedent and raises wider questions about freedom of expression. Proportionality in sentencing and the misuse of limited prison resources. We consider the alternative sanctions such as fines or community service will be far more appropriate." And that is still assuming that any of those cases reach the criminal threshold or ought to reach the criminal threshold. Now, the government did respond because obviously after 10,000 it gets a response and after 100,000 it's considered for a debate. It got over 180,000 signatures. Now, here's the government response, which interestingly, now I've not seen this before, but the Petitions Committee has come back to say, well, that's not good enough. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. Now, the response here says, well, the headline of it is, "The government's committed to ensuring penalties are proportionate and uphold freedom of expression." which clearly on the face of it in some cases doesn't appear to be true. But nonetheless, let's read on. It says freedom of expression is a cornerstone of our democratic society, even though at the moment we are no longer considered a free speech nation. You remember this diagram that I showed you before. The UK is now orange, which means less restricted, not open. Even in Brazil, they have open levels of freedom of expression, as does the United States and Canada and many other places. But the United Kingdom, no longer, not according to the Global Expression Report for 2025. It is now less restricted. Back to the petition. So that flies in the face of what this says. This says freedom of expression is a cornerstone of our democratic society. It is a long-standing tradition in this country that people are free to demonstrate their views, however uncomfortable these may be to the majority. You probably wouldn't believe that, given how many people have gone to prison for it recently, but nonetheless. The government's committed to protecting this right while also ensuring that laws are in place to address harmful criminal behaviour. The Online Safety Act reflects this careful balance, requires platforms to take proportionate steps, etc. Bit of a sales spiel for the Act, where if an individual is convicted of an offence related to opinion-based online speech, the independent judiciary responsible for determining appropriate sentences based on the facts for each of these and the relevant sentencing guidelines. And I would add before that the CPS is actually responsible for ensuring that any of that speech crosses a criminal threshold and is not just opinion-based online speech, in which case many of them shouldn't be prosecuted in the first place, but nonetheless. It goes on, the sentencing framework provides courts with a range of sentencing powers alongside imprisonment, including fines, etc., etc. So the general position is outlined by the government here. And again, they say we are committed to ensuring that the justice system protects and the public upholds fundamental rights and uses custodial sentences only when they are necessary and proportionate. And that was sent as a response by the Ministry of Justice. Interestingly enough, I've now received an email that says that you're receiving this email because I signed this petition, and says as follows. The Petitions Committee, the group of MPs who oversee the petition system, has considered the government's response to this petition and felt that the response did not respond directly to the request of the petition. They've therefore asked the government to provide a revised response. When the committee received a revised response from the government, we'll publish it and share it with you. And so again, this response from the government, the Petitions Committee, suggests is not adequate because it doesn't address the question. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? Having listened to endless questions in Parliament, no one seems to answer the question these days. And indeed, as in not answering the question, I've posted something not a few minutes ago before starting to record this video, and I'll bring this on screen in just a moment, from Susan Hall, asking again and again why nobody will answer the question as to whether or not they have rape gangs in London. Sadiq Khan wouldn't answer the question, and now his deputy won't answer the question. And so Susan Hall says, why won't anyone answer me? Are there or are there not grooming gangs in London? And because there's no answer to that question, I've posted my own thing about this and said, this raises a serious question indeed. Why won't they answer? The public's listening to the non-answer to a straightforward question. It is a yes-no question. Are these gangs operating in London? Now, anyone's guess is, of course, they are. But of course, we want them to answer the question. The public, I suggest, should vote based on that non-answer. As in, if you don't feel that these people are answering the question sufficiently, perhaps that should inform and influence your vote next time around. Because I would suggest, respectfully, that we want ministers and we want people in positions who are going to answer these difficult questions. Well, they're not difficult to answer. They might be difficult in the content and the substance of the question, but they shouldn't be difficult questions to answer. But because no one is answering the question, we are left in an impossible position. And now we're in the position, which I've not seen before, where you've got the Petitions Committee emailing me to say, actually, we don't think the government actually answered the question in this one. And so they are now directing this petition back to the government, which I'm sure Rupert Lowe will be pleased with, because I'm sure Rupert Lowe won't be, or anybody will be pleased with that answer, because it was a very generic, we uphold free speech, we've got a system in place, we protect free speech, the judges are independent, the sentences are decided by judges, etc. I don't think any of that is adequately addressing the question, because the question, to come back to it, says to review the possible penalties for social media posts, including the use of prison. And that doesn't review anything, as the email from the Petition Committee suggests. All it does is say that they have a general system in place. but it doesn't actually review anything. So I'll be very interested to see what comes back with that. And the final thing that I'll leave you with, which I'll probably leave in more detail to my money channel, Daniel Shansmith, link below. And if you want my personal opinions about these things, please do check out my Off the Record channel. And thank you all so much, by the way, for 76,000 subscribers now. I'm truly grateful for that. Off the Record is linked below. The final thing here, whose side are they on? We now have the Office for Budget Responsibility saying that, or the chief saying, higher tax is not good for growth, or the government, which is something that I've been saying since the budget. And some people who I appear to live rent-free in their heads online have questioned why I've been so vocal about these things and different things about this government and decisions by this government. It's for this reason. It is killing businesses. It's killing growth. Jobs are down. Salaries are down. And the whole outlook is just not good. And it is even worse if they're looking at even more tax rises. And so now we have the chief of the OBR saying higher tax is not good for growth. And yet we get all the indications and hints of more tax rises in the autumn. This is utterly ludicrous. Do check out Cut My Tax, by the way, great account on X. And let me know what you think in the comments below, because I think this is absolute madness. We are in a downward spiral, and we really need people that are going to cooperate with the public rather than it appears to work against us. So thanks for watching. Please do subscribe, and I'll see you next time.